Welcome, I'm Tim Scoggins, Chairman of the Shaftsbury Select Board, and I'm calling this meeting of the Shaftsbury Select Board to order at 6:30 on Monday, February 19th, 2018. Does any member of the board have a conflict of interest with anything appearing on the agenda this evening?
No.
Nope.
No.
We have minutes to approve from our last meeting, February 5th. And Tim and Tony and Joe were there, so yep, we can approve these. These were circulated. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for February 5th as circulated?
So moved.
Moved by Tony.
Second.
Second by Joe. Any additions, corrections, discussion?
No. Nope.
All in favor of approving the minutes for February 5th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the minutes for February 5th are approved by a vote of 3-0-0. And then on January 16th, we still got to have Art and Tony and Joe here, so those have still got to wait. Warrants. On top here I have check warrant number 25 in the amount of $68,502.94.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Tony.
Second.
Second by Joe. Major items on this one are $2,800 and $4,200 to American Rock Salt, $6,200 to Blue Cross Blue Shield, $1,900 to Bennington County Regional Commission, $2,000 to Bennington County Sheriff, $2,245 to Culligan Water Technologies for the water softener we had put in up by the landfill.
That was for the poet.
That's the poet. We haven't got to the water softener yet.
The water softener is part of that.
Okay. $2,000 to Delory, along with a lot of other miscellaneous charges. $1,600 to GA Bow Fuels, $1,200 to GA Bow Fuels, and those are the major items. Any more discussion? All in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So check warrant number 25 in the amount of $68,502.94 is approved 3-0-0.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Is this a receipt, Dave, or is this something to act on?
That has to stay on there, yeah, so we see that has to go back to the...
Okay, so here, a lot of paper for check warrant number 26 in the amount of $9.80.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Tony,
Second.
second by Joe. Undeliverable refund check parcel. So we sent a property refund apparently by check, and it came back to us.
Yeah, well, it was undeliverable, so it was reissued.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Check warrant number 26 in the amount of $9.80 is approved 3-0-0. And payroll warrant number 16 in the amount of $21,208.06.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Tony,
Second.
seconded by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Payroll warrant number 16 in the amount of $21,208.06 is approved, 300. Are there any announcements? Are there any public comments? I see no public. Treasurer's report. Melanie is not here. She sent me her report and a statement. Like she often says, things are cruising along just fine. No big ins or outs. We are pretty much on track and nothing much to report. So, any discussion on treasurer's report? Roads. Dave, you're going to do roads for us tonight?
That treasurer's report went so quick, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I thought we would just recap a couple of the grants and things we're going to apply for lately. We just were awarded a couple more grants. So we have one for work on Tinkham Road for $18,000 that we'll be doing shortly. This is from Better Back Roads. A lot of this has to do with the stormwater drainage plans the state wants us to have. We have Upper Shaftsbury Hollow from Dwyer's Camp to the end, which is another Better Back Roads grant, which is $20,000 that we'll be doing again before June. And that's also for drainage, remove some trees, make the road more stable. We have a stormwater master plan, which we've just got through DCRC. They'll be doing a lot of work with this. We'll be hiring an outside engineer. It'll be Steve, myself, and Shelley working with BCRC to determine zones and work with the engineer. This is a big part of us being able to comply with the state mandates for water, so it was nice to get that grant. We're already working on, with BCRC again, on a grant that will produce a new inventory of culverts and roads, and that grant's for $7,600 that we've gotten. We were just awarded another grant today for $20,000 to do quite a number of projects out in various locations around town: Cider Mill Road, Cold Spring Road, Holy Smoke Road, West Road, and Murphy Hill Road. Again, a lot of projects, again, with stormwater drainage, the tree work, and culvert stitches. Some of the stone mattresses that we put out on East Road, we're going to put into those locations over there. We just received that grant today, so that was good to get. And then the big ones from the state. We're going to apply. Last year, you might remember, we didn't get grants, state highway grants from the state. We need $175,000 to start the culvert replacement on Shaftsbury Hollow at Hollow Hideaway. A few years back, we got a grant to evaluate that culvert, and time's up. We have only 2 years left before it hits its maximum lifespan, so I think we'll make some progress on that. And the second part is
we haven't gotten that grant yet.
No, we haven't. We were turned down last year and the year before. As they prioritize it, they also know that there's a time lifespan issue here. And then the last one will be for East Road. We want to finish the paving to the Bennington line, and so we're asking the state for $320,946. That will match at $102,000, and we have all that in reserve funds to take care of that. So that won't be an issue for this year. One other thing. We have posted a couple of signs out by the corner, and this has become a statewide issue. People taking sand, road sand for the driveways and everything, which we don't necessarily object to, but it's becoming an issue with people driving in while we're moving tandem trucks around and backhoes and large bucket loaders. It's becoming a hazard. What we've done is there's a pile of sand out here and 2 signs: danger, no trespassing. Please stay on this side of those signs, and you can fill up with your buckets right from the pile we've made here for you. This has, with all the ice this winter, it's become a statewide issue, and it's a big liability issue for us with little cars driving around between tandems and bucket loaders. So please, just sand here, when it gets low, we'll just dump another bucket out there. So it'd be very easy for everybody to get to. And please limit it to buckets. Don't pick up trucks.
Right, right.
And that's really about it for the roads for today. We're just hoping the overtime is up as might be expected for a winter like we've had. And most of that goes back to December, because in December we really chewed up a lot of overtime, especially when they had to come out on the holidays, including basically a 12-hour day on Christmas Day. So, but it's all manageable, and the materials aspect is still below budget. So we'll see what the next 4 weeks brings. It'll be 72 degrees or whatever it's going to be on Thursday, but then it's going right back to cold. So, and it's only February, so I'm sure we have some more to deal with yet. Hopefully it'll just be snow and not all this ice, which is really causing a lot of overtime. But I do think the roads have been kept up pretty well during the winter, and hope for an easy mud season. That would be best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good, and thank you for staying on top of those grants and making sure that they get applied for and done right, so that we get the money, because we need it, and a lot of those things, especially the big paving projects, just can't happen unless we get state help.
No, they can't. We simply don't have the money for those.
So when you were talking about engineers for the road, is that something we bid out, or is that something we've already got somebody in mind, or?
For the grant we just got for the stormwater management, that'll be directed through BCRC, and they've managed a number of these. And what they'll do is they'll put out a bid, and talking to us, an RFP actually, to a list of people they've used, and it'll go out generally. Then we'll decide which one we want to. The monies for that is all through the state. Our contributions to that, our 20%, is going to be my time, Steve's time, and Shelley's time, which can be billed back, because they do expect, whether it's Steve or another person, depending on the work schedule, they do expect someone to be out with the engineer, someone with road experience, which would have to really be Steve or Dave, or one of the experienced crew out there, going over some of these problems with them. And the goal is to identify 5 significant areas that need to be improved. Now, we just were awarded a grant to repair 5 significant areas. So in the scope of this new project the state wants, with the interconnected waterways and all that, to keep the water clean, we're doing pretty well on all this. The new inventory, and we're going to have the stormwater survey, so we're going to be in good shape as this moves forward. And it's good we keep getting the Better Back Roads grants, so that's helping us out. And having 50 some odd miles of gravel road helps out too when you apply for these, because they know it's quite a lot to take care of.
Necessary.
Yeah. Okay, coal haul bid opening.
Okay. We received 3 bids for the project. Here's the third one. Pass these down here. From Russell Construction, Ed Scholl Construction, and I have a fancy opener if you'd like one.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I slit the thing in half the last time I tried to use that. I'll try to do better. At least get it started. If I run it all the way through there, I know.
I do that all the time.
Get half a bid proposal. Okay, this one is from Ed Scholl Construction. And it describes what the project includes, and the total bid is $31,100. Did they put tape on the end there?
Is that a sealed bid? Sealed that.
Yeah. This one is from Russell Construction. Total bid is, make sure. Yep. Total bid is $63,873. And this one is from Wright Construction. And this one is $37,151. So we're short two selectmen tonight, and one of these is far enough off that I think we need to look and check and make sure that it's bidding on the same thing.
Okay.
So unless y'all have a different opinion, I would say we would postpone this. Dave,
No,
do we have time to
Look at it.
look at this at our next meeting, or?
We are going to schedule a meeting, I want to bring that up, because the next regular meeting is also a town meeting. It'd be best to have a special meeting the week before to pay bills, and we could put this on there just so everyone has a chance to look at this a little bit.
Let's do that, yeah.
Yeah, because one was far out. Okay.
Yeah, two
So
are very
we can-
close, one is very different, and we owe them all at looking at closer at what they
Mhm.
said they were gonna do, so.
So we're talking about sometime a convenient day next week, so we can pay bills and approve this.
Do you guys have preference on days next week?
Monday, fine.
You wanna do Monday? Monday the 26th?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. All right, let's plan that.
And that would be, just for the agenda, it would solely be to pay the warrants and to discuss this.
Right.
Okay. Anything on town garage and transfer station?
Yeah, we have just a couple of updates, just to remind people where we are in the schedule. The alternate building system submittals were due February 1st, and none were submitted. The next significant date is the 21st, which will be bidders' requests for interpretation. So anything, any of the eight bidders, 8 GCs who took out the package they have to submit their questions by the 21st, and the addendum would be issued to the 28th, the following week, to answer any of those questions. We have been approved for moving our transfer station. The new facility management plan has been posted by the state and should be signed off on quickly. I think I mentioned before that our wastewater and potable water supply permit has been issued, and right now all the permits we have are issued as far as I know. And we still have weeks to go before it comes into play.
So we've got all of our permits in place?
Yeah, I believe every permit's in place now. There might be one question on this last stormwater change they've made, but everything else is here. We're ready to go. And we still have weeks to go before it's even going to start, so we have lots of play left with it. But the big one I want to make sure we had all done with was the actual moving the transfer station, which is now closed pretty much. So we're in good shape with that. Let's see. Oh, well, I meant to bring up one of the roads, if we can go back to that for just a second. We talked earlier about the malfunctioning sign down here. Our speed sign at the end of the town, that just is not oriented to get enough light. There's no way to orient it as far as we can tell. So we have a modest bid, not bid, but a modest way of fixing it by connecting to the nearby Green Mountain Power Pole. They've approved it. It'll be a little under $3,000 because we have to put in a conduit, we have to put in a meter, but we'll solve the problem for forever. Like it's off today, a couple of days of sun, it'll run again. Everybody's seen the problem. These things are far touchier than
Wow,
you would think.
yeah,
The one on this end runs great, you know,
Yeah.
because there's absolutely no obstruction, but even from the specs, even branches without leaves can start to cut into the absorption, which until we had it checked by somebody who really knows the business, I found that hard to believe, but, and it's, you know, it's pointing south, so you would think it would be it, but it's just clearly not working after being up there this long, so it's a modest investment at the end of quite a large project to get it to run properly.
Right, right. Yeah, we've been learning a little bit about how these things work, and it turns out if you've got, in a reduced amount of light, like a cloudy day, solar cells will work by a reduced amount, as you would expect. But if you completely black out even a small portion of the cells, the whole thing can go pretty much to zero.
wow, really?
Yeah, and what's happening there is that plaque, the solar plaque is setting up there, and that big, thick Green Mountain Power cable is going right over it. And I have a feeling that's what's causing it, is that 2-inch thick power cable is blocking out
Huh.
enough of it that it's making the whole thing just not work. So unfortunate, but we can fix it. So
Yeah.
let's get it done.
Yeah, we'll just have them do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I guess I'll go ahead and blast this quickly. I was debating whether or not we wanted to talk about this, just because a couple of zoning issues came up. It's long term. It's things we can be thinking about. We'll have to go over it again with the rest of the board, but it came up recently because the DRB came to the Planning Commission and said, we're stuck on this, and we're finding inconsistencies in the bylaws. And what I think is happening is that, or what I know is happening, is the DRB is interpreting the bylaws in a way we did not expect. And I'll bring it up here in a minute, but we have a chart in there. I'll go ahead and bring it up now. Yeah. Describe it and then show it to you. Yeah, I'll go ahead and show it to you. Where's my cursor? So we rewrote the bylaws. It's been a couple years now, or more than a year. And we added some conveniences for the user, and one of them was this table of uses. And what it did is it went through and it looked at every use that is listed anywhere in the bylaws, what is permitted, dwellings, family dwellings, and it goes on down through other things, and where those things are listed as permitted. And they can be permitted outright so that the zoning officer can grant the permit. They can be permitted with site plan review, which means the DRB just has to approve your plan, or they can be a conditional use where the DRB has to decide, are we going to allow this, and are we, what does the plan actually look like? And so we built this chart, and what we thought was innocuous was we put X's where in the zones where the things are not listed as permitted and called them not permitted. And the DRB has decided that they are interpreting, and they're worried that other people will also interpret it. This is explicitly not permitted. And that's not the intention of this. It's meaning that they're not listed as permitted. And it's a subtle but important difference.
Yeah.
Because what we did was we try to list the things we can think of and where we would have them permitted. And for the things that we can't think of, we have a clause in the bylaws that says if it has an impact that's substantially like things that are permitted, the DRB can allow them to happen in that zone. But for example, the DRB is looking at down here where, and wording could probably have been better, but over here these last two columns are the industrial zones, and we have listed carpentry, woodworking, production of housing, and housing components as being permitted in the industrial zone. And the DRB is looking at this and saying woodworking not permitted in rural residential. So a guy cannot make birdhouses, according to their interpretation, a guy can't make birdhouses in his garage in rural residential and sell them, which is absolutely not the intention of this. And so it's kind of a conundrum. I see the position the DRB is in, but that is certainly not what was intended. We didn't intend that people can't make birdhouses in their garage in rural residential, but that's what we're up against. So the long-term fix is relatively easy, and by long-term I'm referring to the fact that the next election is in November and we can make bylaw changes then. The easiest thing is just to take out the X or not define the X, leave the cells blank, so that there's no confusion there. But if, we did not expect that the chart was going to introduce bylaw language. What we, the select board, and the planning commission intended was that the words are the bylaw language, but it's in there and it has that danger. We can also add an explanation that says, this is showing what's listed where, and that's all. And so we can deal with that in the November election. What we and the planning commission might consider in the short term, and this was a suggestion made by Jim Sullivan at BCRC, was the planning commission and or the select board could issue a letter of intent saying this is what we intended by this chart, in the hopes that the DRB would interpret the bylaws the way we'd intended in the meantime. Whether or not we do that, I think is debatable, and I've put the question to our lawyer to see if there are pros and cons there. But just so you know, there's a bylaws issue that needs to get revisited by November.
So,
The other one, and this one is just kind of interesting, so I brought it up, is tiny houses. This is kind of a thing now.
yeah.
People are building houses that are as small as 100 square feet. These little things can vary from things that look very much like trailers to things that look very much like houses that are permanently mounted. They just happen to be tiny. And we've had our first permit request for this sort of thing, and we're kind of taken aback by it because it does not fit squarely into our bylaws as they currently exist. The thing that they are most closely related to is what we call a dwelling unit. A dwelling unit, or part of a dwelling occupied or intended to be occupied by one family for residential purposes, containing full housekeeping facilities for the exclusive use of the occupants. That's kind of the closest thing to it, but it's on wheels, and the state calls it a trailer.
Right.
So, if we lean toward what the state is saying, the closest thing in our bylaws would be a recreational vehicle, except that our recreational vehicle definition says it's designed primarily not for use as permanent dwelling, but as a temporary living quarters for recreational camping, travel, and seasonal use. These things are meant to be lived in. They're houses.
Right.
Yeah. And so they don't really fit there. They might be a dwelling unit accessory, but we went ahead and stuck in there in our bylaw that says they have to be at least 400 square feet. A tiny house is typically less than 400 square feet. So it doesn't really fit that either. So it's something we need to think about. We have tremendous housing problems all across Vermont, especially in southern Vermont, and we have them here in Shaftsbury. People can't afford houses, and an obvious solution to that is building smaller houses. So this is something that we need to think about. I believe strongly we need to allow it, but we need to think about how we allow it and how we manage it.
If it's going to be a permanent structure, it's going to be on a foundation, doesn't it? Otherwise, it is a trailer. It's a mobile unit.
It's a trailer.
Yeah, except these things are used a lot where they are rolled in and never actually taken off the wheels,
Just so trailer.
but turned into permanent housing. But we don't allow people to live in recreational vehicles. That's the other thing in our bylaws that needs to be pointed out is you're not allowed to live in a recreational vehicle. But these things are meant to be lived in. So it's kind of a thing to be grappled with and to be thought about. And, things like tiny house communities. I mean, there's some very cool ideas out there about these things, brought together on a piece of land and made very affordable. They're nice looking and they provide housing, that people can
Well,
afford.
part of the
very
appeal,
easily.
though, is the fact that the tiny house movement is meant to be moved. They're meant to be brought around and not permanently mounted. I would think that if they're permanently on a foundation or some kind of slab, that they're not able to be moved, and then becomes a permanent dwelling.
Right.
Yeah, and in that case, it's a little easier, I think,
Right.
if you bring it in. But we also should consider tiny houses as they're intended to be used, and a
Oh,
lot of
sure.
times they don't involve permanent water and sewer hookups.
No,
They're run like RVs,
yes.
except that they're expected to be lived in full time. So
So they're not going to be hooked up to a sewer system or a septic system?
no, a lot of times they work like RVs. You truck in
So-
water and truck out sewer. Yeah.
Okay. So you go up to a dump station and
Mm-hmm.
unload and
Yeah, or have a truck come to you. Yeah. So it's, the easy thing would just be say, it doesn't fit our bylaws, so we don't allow it, go somewhere else. But that's not the right answer because,
it doesn't.
like I say, there are housing problems here and this is a potential solution we need to figure out how to manage. And again, November election would be our target for making bylaws changes.
I mean, those houses you just showed, they're really cute. They're good-looking houses.
Yeah.
So my only concern would be that you're going to find some people that are going to, really throw together a tin shack and say, look, I've got a little house just like that. But it's
Right.
really,
Right, and you're going to have people who
there's going to be a criteria that
park an RV and say, how is my RV different from
that
that
Exactly.
picture in the upper left there? Yeah.
Right.
steering wheel.
Well, RVs can be towed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a.
I think of them as trailers. I mean, they're not cheap either.
No, they're nice-looking units.
Mhm.
I mean, they're not an eyesore by any sense, but I guess what I was getting at is you're going to find some people that are going to kind of throw their own thing together, and
Yeah.
it's going to be,
Mhm.
the tar paper shack.
Mhm.
Right. Right. And that's why I say we got to figure out. We would like to allow them. We've got to manage them also
Mhm.
because you could very easily end up with just trailer parks
Yeah,
from these things. So.
yeah. And those are nice, no doubt about it. What's the average cost on something like that?
I don't know. I don't know what they cost, but I mean, I've seen it thrown around that they can cost $100,000.
Oh, yeah. They used to be a lot cheaper, and
I was gonna
since
say.
they became the fad, all of a sudden the price has gone way up,
Yeah.
way up. We have a couple, we have one, two, at Shaftsbury, at least that I'm aware of.
I'm not aware of. I'm just aware of the one that's come to the zoning for a permit,
Okay.
and it's under debate right now. So things to think about. All right. Is there any other business? Action items. We have to schedule a meeting for the 26th to pay bills before town meeting. And Dave, if you could look over the coal hall bids and inform us as to if they are all bidding on the same thing.
Okay.
Our previous action items, there was a bad link in the town report on the website, which I fixed. And it was suggested that we might look into buying a color printer. That's still on your to-do list?
Yeah, when we redo up here, we'll have a new printing station, probably pretty much where it is now, but I remember asking for a color printer when I first came into zoning too, so I guess 6 years later, maybe we should buy.
How did you get one?
Yeah, I think we can afford a
It's
color
okay.
printer, yeah.
There's the small one up here, because at the time, we only had the one downstairs, I think, but you don't want to color one downstairs, because that'd be really expensive. But just to print off a few things for people up here wouldn't be a big deal.
Right.
And we would have to limit it, because the cartridges, as you know from your home one, is really expensive.
Yeah, the printer's cheap, it's the cartridges.
It's the cartridges, and now you have to have, mine has to have 5 different cartridges to run at home. One always goes out, and of course you always have to buy the group.
Always.
You know.
My wife just bought a cartridge for our printer at home. It was like $75.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But there are some things, and I know what they're talking about, there are some things where people are asking, printing out an image with a multicolored image that you need for zoning in black
Right.
and white is,
It's hard.
yeah.
Yeah, the zoning map's not real informative in black and white, yeah. Yep. Okay, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Tony,
Second.
seconded by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.